What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm looking at a 2006 Saturn Vue. This one was brought to me with a brake pulsation complaint, and decided to take it around the block for a quick test drive. Seems to me that the rear brakes are pretty much done for. I noticed when I was driving it that you don't feel much of a pulsation in the steering wheel, but you definitely feel it in the brake pedal. And from my experience, if you have front brakes that are warped, usually the rotor's getting warped, typically you'll feel that in the steering wheel before it has a chance to transfer to the rest of the car. Whereas if you have rear brakes starting to go bad, especially drums, I feel like you'll start feeling that more so in the body of the car, and you'll definitely start feeling some feedback in the brake pedal. Now, this is one of the more noticeable brake pulsations I've felt in all the vehicles that I've worked on in my career. But I did notice too that we have what sounds like a leaky muffler, pretty loud in the back. And I'll show you later. I've actually checked everything out on this car. It needs the rear muffler. The case is split open. Both front stabilizer links have play in the lower joint. Lower control arms, the bushings are worn out on those. And very faintly through the exhaust noise, you can hear the left front wheel bearing making some noise too. So the owner wants to keep this car. It's still in pretty solid shape. Just needs a little TLC and, a few parts here and there, but I think we can get it in, good working order for them. It's going to feel like a brand new car by the time they get it back. So I'm probably going to split up these repairs into separate videos, probably one for the rear brakes, one for the front suspension components, one for the wheel bearing, and then I'll probably include the exhaust in this one since that's kind of a one-off component. But let's go ahead and take this thing for a test drive, and I'll show you what we're working with. Here, you can hear that exhaust clear as day. You can hear as we're heading over bumps, you can hear maybe a little bit of a clunking noise on the front. Especially here as I knock the wheel side to side. But that's probably a combination of the lower control arms, but I'm thinking most of that noise is probably from those front stabilizer links. Let me get up to a little higher speed here, and I'll see if we can show you that wheel bearing noise I'm hearing. And hopefully you can hear as we get up to about 40-45 here, you can hear that wheel bearing coming into play in the left front. If you can't hear it now, we have a couple of turns, one to the right and then one to the left, like kind of gradual curves. You should hear it as the car turns and the body rolls. Especially this first one, it'll load that left side wheel bearing and it'll start making the most noise. Alright, as I come up to this red light, I'm going to see if you can notice that brake pulsation. It's pretty obvious. I'm not sure how well it's going to show up on video, but it jerks you around pretty good. So let's see how noticeable it is when we come to a stop. Alright, so I've had a chance to drive it. Hopefully you guys heard all those noises. I'm not sure how well they came, through on the video. But I'm going to show you how to diagnose all those noises just to confirm before you buy parts, in case you get the wrong thing. You want to know what you're looking at before you start ordering anything. So I'll cover that in the various videos. Like I said, keep an eye out for all the different videos and all the different repairs I'm going to be doing on this car. I think in this one we'll stick with just the exhaust, but I'm going to go ahead, pull it in the garage, and we'll start checking it out. So you can see I have the car lifted. I am lucky enough to have access to a quick jack, which is super helpful. This is actually one of the rare occasions where I can actually use it because most of the cars I work on are so rusty that you go to lift it with a quick jack and the lifting points start to disintegrate. So super stoked to be able to actually use that for once. I think the first thing I'm going to show you guys is the wheel bearing noise. I pinpointed it to this left front wheel here. unfortunately, I don't think the wheel bearing noise really showed up in that video, but at least that will give you kind of an idea what to look for. If you hold up a stethoscope or the extension to each side and you notice one that's buzzing louder than the other, that's a pretty clear indication that that side needs to be replaced. So I'm going to go ahead and pull off all 4 wheels, and I'll continue to show you what we got going on with the rear brakes and the front suspension. So starting with the rear brakes, I did have to beat the crap out of these drums to get them off to inspect the rear brakes. As you can see, there's a fair amount of rust buildup. What you could do to help get these off is to spray some PB Blaster, WD-40, something like that around the hub opening here. Usually it kind of builds up some rust and prevents the drum from coming off easily, and even around the holes here for the lug studs. So where I did have to hit it kind of on the face a few times, like in this area, just to kind of break the rust bond that it had to the hub behind it. And then it also kind of helps if you hit it real good on the edges here to kind of break it free. Sometimes you might have to kind of wiggle them. So this one's already, I just checked this out like a week ago. This one's already kind of restuck itself. So you might have to, sorry for shaking you guys there, wiggle it side to side to get it off. If you feel any kind of springy tension or resistance when you're pulling it off, chances are the shoes are still adjusted out too far and they're grabbing the inside of the drum. So you want to come back here. There should be a little rubber plug you can pull out, and you want to find like a little star tooth adjuster that's back there and adjust it down so that you can pull the shoes in and slide the drum off a little more easily. So we're going to take this off. So at first glance, it doesn't look too bad outside of the surface rust. It looks like there's a fair amount of life left on those shoes, but as you can see, as we work our way down this primary shoe here, it's getting pretty thin, and I don't think these drum brakes have been touched in a while. The car's got about 160,000 miles on it, so I'm sure they've been done at some point, but it's probably been a long time since they've been touched. I doubt they've really been adjusted or maintained or anything like that. And I'm noticing a little bit of wetness here at the wheel cylinder, which tells me that's probably starting to bypass some brake fluid and maybe starting to leak a little bit. In addition to that, if we come around the backside here, you can see that brake line's getting a little scary. Usually when they start getting like that, especially if we're replacing the wheel cylinder, I would not expect that brake line to survive disconnecting it from the wheel cylinder. So we're gonna go ahead and fabricate our own little line here. And then those hoses also have a fair amount of rust on them. I figure we're going through all this trouble, we might as well just do the hoses. So by the time we're done, everything from the brake line back to the wheel cylinder and shoes, everything's gonna be brand new or refreshed. So that's it for the brakes. I will feature that in a different video. Let's go take a look at the front end now. Coming up to the front suspension, it actually doesn't look too bad up here. I did, when I had the wheels still on, shake them side to side and up and down. When you shake the wheel, you grab it in the front and the back and then shake it side to side. You are testing for any play in the inner and outer tie rod ends. I didn't feel anything there, so those are pretty solid. They actually look not too old. I'm sure they were replaced at some point. And I didn't see any play in the ball joint either if you kind of shake it up and down. I even got underneath at the ball joint, put a pry bar between the ball joint or the lower control arm and the knuckle, and didn't see any play there. So everything looks good. The only problem here though, and I don't know if this is gonna show up, but those bushings for the lower control arm don't look the greatest. And I noticed during the first test drive, you can see if we pry on them, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a fair amount of play. This part of the control arm is supposed to be bonded to the rubber that's inside the bushing, and it's just kind of sliding in and out pretty freely. It looks like the bushing's starting to kind of pull back a little bit and deteriorate. Maybe that does show up a little better now. There you go, you can see all that. So you'll feel that. I felt it during the first test drive. Under moderate braking, you can feel the front end kind of wander a little bit and get a little unstable. I think that'll take care of that. And then the clunking noise, hopefully you guys heard that in the video. You grab the stabilizer bar here. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can see we got a little bit of play in that lower joint. I did find that same play on the right front stabilizer link, so I'm just going to go ahead and replace both of those in addition to the lower control arms. So that will be the front suspension all figured out. And then the only thing left is going to be this left front wheel bearing. Shouldn't be too bad, it's a non-ABS unit. The only issue I've run into with those in the past is any kind of corrosion bonding to the knuckle. Sometimes they can be kind of a pain to get off. We'll see how that goes, and I'll feature that in a separate video. So now that all those are sorted out, we know what we're doing, we got a game plan, I have parts here for everything. I'm gonna go ahead and start working on everything. I will link all those videos down in the description. And then as far as this video is concerned, we'll go ahead and take a look at that rear muffler. All right, guys, so this is the part of the video where I was hoping to cover the muffler replacement and wheel bearing replacement on the Saturn Vue. Unfortunately, as you can see, it's no longer occupying its spot in my garage. So the customer had something come up at the last minute and they needed their car back urgently. So I figured instead of selfishly keeping it longer than finishing filming the videos, I'd put the camera down and get it back in their hands as soon as possible. So they're all set. Unfortunately, that means I couldn't finish filming what I had started on both items. So I'll kind of use what footage I have and kind of give some pointers here before I wrap up the video, try to salvage something out of it. In the case of the muffler, I'm replacing it with a complete unit from Walker. Just order it off of Amazon. I'll have that link down in the description below. But basically, if you have seen my Ford Escape exhaust repair video, it's a similar process. Basically what you do, unfortunately I can't visualize it, I don't have the muffler in front of me now, but you hold it up to the one that's in the car currently, kind of eyeball where you want to make your cuts. You want to leave more material than possible, or more material than you think you need, just to be on the safe side. You can always take off a little ring of the pipe or so if you need to, a little ½ inch at a time. But basically we're going to make a cut in the old pipe, and you'll see in the video here I cut pretty close to this little metal hanger that joins the pipe to the muffler. It comes around that little it's almost like a 180-degree bend. I got a little too close to that hanger, or that little support beam, and actually caught a weld on the pipe I had to grind down. So make sure you give yourself enough breathing room so that when your final cut is done, it's pretty clean. You can slide the new pipe over it. Once the old pipe is cut and disconnected from the main pipe in the vehicle, you can work on getting those exhaust hangers free. I just use a pair of big channel lock pliers, kind of pry them out of place. It definitely helps to spray them down with some sort of penetrating oil or silicone spray, whatever's going to get them nice and slippery. And I think there's one on either side in this case, and you just take one side down at a time. The whole muffler unit should come down straight out of the vehicle without any issue. And then you can transfer those rubber insulators over to the new muffler, or if you need new ones, this would be the time to install them. And basically from this point, you just have to install the new muffler up into the vehicle, hang the rubber insulators first, one on each side. And then the hardest part I had was kind of finagling the two pipes together. The new pipe is flared out slightly to fit over the stock exhaust pipe, what's left of it. So that's pretty helpful. But it looks like somebody had modified this exhaust at one point. It wasn't quite sitting straight in the vehicle where it was supposed to be. So I had to kind of muscle the two ends together. But eventually I did get the new pipe to slide over the old pipe. And then you just clamp it in place with a muffler clamp. I don't remember the exact size offhand, but I'll have that link down in the description as well. Once you do that, you just tighten down that muffler clamp, make sure everything is nice and solid. Maybe give the pipe a jiggle and make sure nothing's going to pop loose. But you should have a decent overlap, at least, I don't know, 3-4 inches or so for that muffler clamp to kind of bite down into. Make sure it's not going to go anywhere. And then once you're done there, you can fire it up, make sure there's no exhaust leaks. Always feel free to use muffler putty if you really want. It's not 100% necessary where those U-bolt clamps or those exhaust clamps are, but they might help cut down on any exhaust leak that might remain. So hopefully that's everything covered with the exhaust. If I forgot a step, I will try to kind of add an addendum down in the description below, just to kind of give you guys some guidance. But with that pretty much set, I'll turn my focus to this wheel bearing. Now, if you remember, we had a buzzing noise from that left front wheel bearing. I did confirm that this one was making noise. And I've replaced a handful of these, or actually many of these in my professional career. I've never had one put up a fight like this one. This one was an absolute nightmare. I decided not to record a video on it just because it took me better part of 3-4 hours to get this out of the car. It really didn't make for good watching. It might have been informational, but I didn't even know where to begin with filming and editing, and yeah, so I just needed this done and out of my life. But basically, what I did, you take out the axle nut that's in the middle here. The axle shaft was kind of seized inside the bearing a little bit. I had to use quite a bit of heat from a yellow Pontiac torch in the middle there. Got the axle shaft free. Get these 3 bolts out from behind, and then it's just a matter of trying to apply enough mechanical pressure outward away from the knuckle and heat around the knuckle where the wheel bearing mounts. And yeah, basically just wailing on it with a hammer. Once I started getting a little edge around the flat part here where it mates, getting some chisels in there, hammering chisels in all around, and just trying to build some pressure to push the thing out. And once I started getting it moving, it still put up a fight every inch of the way out. So these are not fun. I will not attempt another one of these without some sort of special tool. I used to have special tools or access to them back in the day. They would have these out within probably 20 minutes or less. Unfortunately, I don't have access to that stuff anymore. So I'm pretty much stuck with what I had to work with in the garage. But as you can see, all this deformation and everything, that's just from me hitting it with a hammer. That's how crazy we were getting with it. And then these wheel studs fell out just as a result of the vibrations from hitting on it. So yeah, basically we had to heat up the outside of the knuckle, hammer this thing from the backside. Eventually it came out. And then at that point, I made a lot of effort to clean up this area, especially around. You can see where this corrosion buildup is on the inside or the outside of the hub there. You want to clean that area and this mating surface as well as possible. And I put a very, very light film of something to keep corrosion bonding in the future in case that wheel bearing needs to be replaced. I can't remember if I put anti-seize. I might have put anti-seize. Sometimes I use some Sil Glide or just something to get a little barrier going. But yeah, basically push a new one in, tighten those 3 bolts down, reinstall the axle shaft nut, and you'll be on your way. And the only thing you have to do from that point is test drive it and make sure that noise is gone. So on the note of a test drive, obviously with the car gone, I can't do a test drive and show you guys how everything panned out. I'm going to do my best to make that not happen in the future. Unfortunately, this is, just the way the cards were dealt in this vehicle. It will happen again in one other video in the future, but I promise you guys I'm not going to do that anymore because I like showing the whole process start to finish. I think without the test drive at the end, it almost kind of voids out the work I'm doing because it gives you closure and it shows you what we're working for and throughout the whole repair process, and it kind of brings everything to a close. So sorry that I can't show that to you. I don't have that footage, but I did drive the vehicle afterwards. Clunky noises are gone, and the buzzing from the wheel bearing is gone, and the muffler is a lot quieter. The car is a lot more civilized, a lot more enjoyable to drive now. So I'm happy with it. I think the customer should be pretty happy with it too, and they get to enjoy the car for years to come. Instead of trashing it, getting something new, we just put a little TLC and a few parts on this car, and it's good and new. It'll last them at least 2, 3, maybe 5 more years. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Check out the channel if you want, and stay tuned for the other 2 videos on this vehicle. But we'll see you next time. Thanks.